I have a question. You talked about going to like a Chicago
Yeah.
camp. I guess going to that, is that an eye-opening experience for your son? Was it an eye-opening experience for you? Like, are you going there and just being wowed by all this talent? Are you going there and saying, you know what, the camp that we went to in Omaha, it's not that much different anymore? Because it used to be
Yeah.
kids had to go, they had to get to St. Louis, they had to get out of here to get
Yeah.
seen and be around, be around great talent. But is that gap narrowing now?
The one thing I think it has narrowed, like we weren't wowed by the athletes in Chicago, but we had been there, to St. Louis this year to play 7-on-7 and seen a lot of
Mhm.
that Chicago talent come down there and play against us. So it wasn't anything that we hadn't seen already this year. It was just a different environment that I wanted to put him in from a training standpoint. I think the one thing that my son learned, that I was happy that he learned that a lot of the game is rigged, right? Like that recruiting, even the recruiting side of it, and the ranking side of it, a lot of it is not real. There's things that happen in the recruiting world and the ranking world, that are pretty messed up. And it's pretty politically driven a lot of times. Zane Flores, right, didn't have an offer going into this summer, and then blew up out of nowhere, and he's an Elite 11 quarterback now.
Mhm.
Um, he's been that good for 2 years. He hasn't changed who he is or anything, and he's been that same kid and been that good. And we were sitting around as a staff like, when is it? We know it's going to happen, but what's taking so long, right? But a lot of it is just because you've got these guys out here that can push the agenda, especially at the quarterback position. My son plays quarterback, unfortunately. Especially at the quarterback position, it's really a rigged game when it comes to that. And the kids that are getting
Mhm.
pushed to the front all the time aren't the best kids. Excuse me, but so my son actually saw that. Um, in the camp. There was a kid that was picked as a camp MVP, and he had been training with the coach for the
Mhm.
last however many years, and he wasn't very good. But he was picked as a camp MVP. So it was one of those things that my son and the other two kids that we took were like, wow, like this is how it works, huh? And that was good for it was a good lesson for them to learn.
Well, he
Is that
tried really hard. He tried
yeah,
really hard. So
yeah, it's not really these rankings and kids getting these offers in 8th grade and 9th grade. None of it really matters, because it doesn't really matter till it gets real when they're 11th, 12th grade. And a lot of these offers that kids are getting right now, they can't commit. Um,
Oh,
so
a
it's
committable offer versus not
yeah,
committable. Yeah.
they're non-committal. They're non-committal. A lot of them are non-committal, and they're like popularity things. And so it's a
Steve,
good lesson for kids
can
to
you
learn that.
explain? Yeah, can you explain what that means? I mean, we've heard that before, but we've had questions to us, and I don't always know how to
Mhm.
answer that. What's a committable and a non-committable? I mean, it doesn't make sense to me in some
It's
ways.
basically like there's a lot of kids out there right now that have offers that if they wanted to call the coach today and say, "Hey, I want to commit," they wouldn't allow them to commit, um, because it's an offer that basically says, "Hey, we think you're going to be good, and because you're kind of highly ranked, or you have some clout behind you, it's a good look for us to offer you, but." I'm not going to lose my job if an 8th grader commits that hadn't played a down of high school football, right? Like
Mhm.
that's not really going to happen. Like kids that haven't played any varsity snaps, most of those kids can't commit. Most of those kids cannot commit because most coaches will lose their jobs if they start signing kids that haven't played any varsity snaps, because a lot of those kids aren't going to pan out when it comes to playing varsity football. Some of them will, some of them won't. So it's like a bet, right? You're kind of hedging yourself, as a coach and as a recruiter, to saying, okay, if this kid does pan out, then we were there first. If he
Mhm.
doesn't, you didn't lose anything, right? If he doesn't, you pull the offer, you move on. We're offering 20 other kids anyway at the same position. So
Mhm.
yeah, there's a lot to the game that goes there. And then a committable offer is just what it sounds like. Like these kids can commit. They've got solid tape. They've been to camp. They've played some varsity snaps. Um, those offers are real, right? And then the kids that are younger, those are offers that they can't really commit to those offers. It's just really something that the coaches are doing to kind of hedge their bet a little bit.
Well, you said something interesting too, and it kind of brings me back to an interview that I did with Chancellor Brewington the other day, and he was talking about his experience with recruiting because he didn't even start playing high school football till his junior year, right? He's actually a baseball guy, he was saying, because his dad was a baseball guy, pitched for the Giants and whatnot in the majors. And he had said that a bunch of schools started coming to him and giving him offers. A lot of, I think they were WAC schools.
Mountain West ones.
Mountain West. Yeah, Mountain West. And that he didn't really understand the recruiting process all that much. And then when he finally went back to some of the coaches to be like, yeah, I'm interested, they were like, oh, well, we hadn't talked to you in so long that we filled your spot with a junior college guy, or we filled your spot with this other kid. And he's like, and so when you say that recruiting and all of these rankings are kind of a mirage, that was actually that's where it clicked in my head that, like, yeah, this is making sense, where all these schools, they'll start throwing out offers, but just because they're offering doesn't mean that these kids really get to go to these schools, right? Like sometimes they're just putting offers up because they want to block another school maybe from doing it or something along those lines. And that's such an interesting, it's almost evil in a weird way, and it makes me want to support NIL even more. So
it's an odd game, you know. It's the recruiting world is changed drastically in the last 2 years, and even now, like today with NIL, everything's changed, and everybody saw the Saban in prime time and Jimbo,
that whole.
They saw that a few weeks ago, and it's the NIL money is going to make it even more, difficult to really know what's going on and what's really happening. But a lot of those kids, those NIL kids that are getting that big time money, those kids are the kids that can commit anywhere, anytime they want to, right? So those are the 4 and 5 star kids that are that are out there that are doing things. But it's I don't even understand it sometimes, to tell you the truth. Like, we have several quarterbacks right now that are very good quarterbacks. Daniel Kalen is one of our quarterbacks, and Braylon Camrad. Cole Payton's a kid that trains with us. Nate Glantz, that's at Iowa State now. Like, our quarterbacks in the last 5 years that have come through Warren Academy, if they've won a state title here, they were a Warren Academy quarterback or they're alumni. And some of those guys have gotten zero love when other guys have gotten love, and they're great quarterbacks, and you just don't understand it. And then we've had, linebackers and linemen that have, for us, that look like no-brainers, and people just haven't jumped. So sometimes it's just what coaches are looking for and what recruiters are looking for. Sometimes it's even this happens with Nebraska. Like, Cole Payton should have been a guy that probably should have had a Nebraska offer when they found out about him late. So it's some of it is coaches feeling pressure to have to offer kids, like you say, to block other schools because they don't want it to look bad on them if they don't offer a kid and that kid pans out and goes to a different school or leaves the state. So there's a lot that plays into the recruiting side of it, and it's all not because we really want a kid. It's because it's, optics a lot of times too.
Well, you mentioned a number of quarterbacks there, and you eventually at some point you'd think that the Warren Academy you start to build this reputation of, hey, you're sending kids to the next level at that spot. I think back to Penn State as linebacker U, or Nebraska was running back U. You build this reputation, and the next level will start to look at that and say, hey, that they're producing them. So you just rattled off 4 or 5 quarterbacks. And I think about someone like Flores as an example, or Peyton Cole also that you said there, that sometimes we'll be late to the game, and we say that, and I know there's going to be someone watching going, how are we late to find out about these kids? Why does it take so long to find out about Zane Flores or some whoever it is? I don't just want he's the one big name one this year that Nebraska didn't offer, and he got out, but. Why does it take so long, or what can you guys do on your end to help get, publicity, not just to Nebraska, again, to anybody, how do you get publicity out to these kids that really need it?
We do reach out to coaches. That is one thing that we do. If we feel like a kid is, capable of playing at the next level, we do reach out to coaches, and we do send, information out about the kid. Say, hey, you may just want to watch, out for this kid. A lot of times the coaches kind of already know about the kid, and again, it comes down to system and what they already have in their rooms a lot of time, if they need the kid or not. And then there's the no-brainer talents that it doesn't matter who's in their room, they're going to offer the kid anyway. Mm-hmm. The one thing that hurts Nebraska the most that is starting to change is the competition level hasn't always been perceived as being the greatest. But now with the number of kids that are going on to Power 5 conferences, and not just going on and getting scholarships, but going on and being good players, that makes a difference. Like signing, the one thing that'll hurt Nebraska more than anything is all these kids get out and go to all these colleges and they are bust because coaches will not recruit the area anymore if they hadn't had success with good players. Mm-hmm. I think back to my era of playing is Nebraska had, just in our region, had so many guys that they got out of Missouri that panned out. That turned into really good players that were around the areas that so they kept coming back, right? Like, because they knew the kids that were playing, in those areas could play. So that's the one thing that'll hurt this area is if these kids now that are getting offers that are leaving the state don't pan out, the coaches won't keep coming back here. So these kids have to go and be successful for it to keep working here. Because otherwise they'll shut the doors and say, well, those kids, we signed 2 kids from there and they couldn't play. So coach will go back there because at the end of the day, that coach's job depends on him recruiting players that can come in and contribute and help them win games. And if players can't come in and do that, they'll shut the door on the areas that aren't helping them get to that level. So hopefully that doesn't happen. A lot of the guys that we work with, we feel like can go and play at the next level, and we'll reach out to coaches. And several of my coaches are close with recruiters or coaches in different places, and we have conversations all the time.
Yeah. Well, and as you're reaching out, feel free to always use Scott's number first. Put him on speed dial number 1. Then and then you can fan out from there. But yeah, let's
believe me, we've sent our fair share of messages down to Lincoln to the different coaches down there and said you should look at these kids. So they get as many calls as anybody else does. They get the first right of refusal.